After the end of the city's eviction moratorium, a New York landlord still can't evict a drug dealing tenant due to a court backlog. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News.
Jasiah, and this is my Onyx.
These are the pictures Jason Watson loves to show off.
This is one of them.
And these are the pictures he hates to show off.
They was passed out on my floor. This is the lobby.
Here at the Bethel Manor Apartments on West 132nd Street, Watson wants to focus on the moments that fill his heart with joy while he raises his family. But he says that's hard to do when people are passed out in the hallways.
And this who got to go through all of that crazy stuff. This little one right here. Hey.
Watson and his neighbors say for more than 2 years, people have been regularly overdosing after coming in and out of one apartment here on the second floor. The NYPD says there have been 241 calls to 911 at this building in the last 2 years.
I feel I have to say something because, like I said, I'll be damned if anything happened to either my kids or anybody in this building.
Tenants say they sometimes find strangers unconscious with hospital bans still on their wrists.
All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of New York City. And now, once again, I'm talking about the Big Apple. Now, I like New York. I really do. I would never live there. I'd never buy a rental property there because they have too many laws, too many rules, and too many regulations. Now, after the end of the city and the state eviction moratorium up in New York, there was a huge backlog created by all of the pent-up demand for evictions within the state. So right now, there's a landlord up in Harlem in New York, right? And he has a horrible tenant up in his place, a tenant who possibly is dealing drugs to tenants who are passing out, overdosing within the hallways of the building, causing a huge disaster for the other tenants and making it a place where nobody wants to live, okay? Also putting the other tenants at risk, putting these drug addicts in the building, just making it a horrible place to live. And all this landlord wants to do is get rid of them, but he can't. He absolutely cannot, because he can't get his case heard in court. So even though the eviction moratorium ended, there's a de facto moratorium in place that's allowing these awful tenants to stay much, much longer than they should be able to. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think, okay? So what do you think of the fact that even though the city, state eviction moratoriums have ended, there are still landlords who are dealing with tenants who have not been able to evict them since before the beginning of the pandemic. Now, I believe that they said in here that they've been trying to evict this tenant since May of 2021. That's insane. So we're 2.5 years beyond that, and they're still dealing with these drug problems within the building, making it a horrible place to live for all the other tenants. And this is exactly why I say, hey, eviction moratoriums, they don't work. Okay, they do not work. Not just in terms of hurting the landlord because we're losing out on rent, but it's hurting these other tenants as well. And this is something that a lot of the activists and the politicians, they refuse to look at these facts. Okay, they refuse to look at situations like this and say, hey, this is ridiculous, we need to make it end. So anyway, let's get into this article and see what it says. It's quite interesting. This article is coming from cbsnews.com, and it says, neighbors at Harlem's Bethel Manor Apartments say overdoses in hallways are putting them at risk. Yeah, overdoses in hallways. And it's supposedly being caused by one bad tenant who they just can't get rid of. So let's get into it. Overdoses in the hallway, drug paraphernalia littered in the building, and 2 years of complaints without results. What's a landlord to do but go to court? In one Harlem apartment building, that solution hasn't been quick. CBS New York's investigative reporter Tim McNicholas took a look at how the delays have only put the tenants at a greater risk. Jason Watson loves to show off some of his pictures and hates to show off others, including photos of people passed out in his building's lobby at Bethel Manor Apartments on West 132nd Street. Watson wants to focus on the moments that fill his heart with joy while he raises his family, but he says that's hard to do when people are passed out in the hallways. And they actually have a picture here showing somebody sort of passed out. And I'll throw that up on the screen. This is absolutely ridiculous. Okay, now imagine you're living in this building and you've got people passed out in the hallways all the time who are overdosing on drugs. I mean, come on, this is absolutely ridiculous. Now I personally, like, I can't say that this is the landlord's fault because they will not allow the landlord to evict the tenant who is dealing these drugs, or the one who is, operating the trap, the drug house where all these people are overdosing, and where this problem is coming from. So if they're not allowing the landlord to evict this person, what are they supposed to do? Okay, they are following the law according to New York, and this is the result. Watson and his neighbors say for more than 2 years, people have been regularly overdosing after coming in and out of one apartment on the second floor. The NYPD says there have been 241 calls to 911 at the building in the last 2 years. I feel I have to say something because I'll be darned if anything happens to my kids or anyone in this building, Watson said. Tenants say they sometimes find strangers unconscious with hospital bands still on their wrists. In the staircase, the neighbors find syringes and small capsules that a law enforcement source tells CBS New York appear to be what the DEA refers to as trash cans, often used to store fentanyl and other dangerous drugs. Yeah, they got a big problem in here. And what is the solution? Like, if a tenant inside the building is allowing people to come in, that's going to be very hard to stop. Even if you put buzzers in place and cameras, etc., that's not going to stop the tenant from who is living inside the building from just opening the door for these people and letting them in. And if the police are doing nothing, this is the bad situation in a place like New York, where they decided, hey, we're not going to enforce the laws here because they thought the laws were discriminatory. Well, you know what they did? They created a problem where situations like this occur. Not only did they say to landlords, well, landlords can't evict people, but then they said, we're not going to enforce the drug laws that we have on the books. And instead, we're just going to allow this stuff to happen because, oh, it's just a minor thing. They're not hurting anybody. They're just using drugs, right? Except for now, this guy, he's worried about his children interacting with these druggies who are overdosing in the hallway of his building. I could push my stroller over something and track it in my house. Say my baby could be crawling on the floor, or my daughter could be sitting on the floor, Watson said. A recent report from the city's health department says Central Harlem, along with South Bronx and East Harlem, continue to experience the highest rates of fatal overdoses. It's bad. It's really bad, Emily Gertz said. Gertz works with Harlem United, a group that works to prevent overdoses. Poverty, discrimination, again, long term disinvestment in this community makes it real difficult for people to thrive, and the pandemic only made that harder, Gertz said. Yeah, they come up with all sorts of excuses. They're like, poverty, discrimination, all this stuff is why these people are overdosing. No, people need to take personal responsibility for their own actions, okay? And these people, yeah, they may need help, but they're the ones who are ultimately responsible for making sure that they are successful in life. It is not the fault of poverty. There's plenty of people in poverty who are not addicted to drugs. It's not the fault of discrimination. It's not the fault of any of this other stuff. It is these people's fault that they are in that situation. And I'm not saying they don't need help. I'm not saying that, right? But there's always this thing that I see with a lot of socialists in particular, right, where they want to blame everyone except for the individual who is making the decisions for the situation that they are in. And I just don't agree with that. So the article, it actually has a little quote in here where they talk to the landlord of the building to get their side of the story. I'm glad that they actually were able to do that. So I'm going to skip down a little bit so we can get into that. Court records show the owner, Bethel Manor LLC, has been trying to get the neighbor evicted since May of 2021. The company tells CBS New York the delays are due to a backlog of cases in court stemming from the pandemic. We are working diligently with all necessary parties to remedy the situation, uphold the safe living environment at Bethel Manor, and protect our residents. Due to COVID era eviction moratorium and subsequent backlog of cases in court, the eviction process for the resident in question has been delayed. We have taken all required steps for eviction and currently waiting for final approval from the court system and are hopeful the eviction will be completed soon for the benefit of the residents living at Bethel Manor. While eviction is always the last resort, we must prioritize the safety and well being of all other residents in the building. Yeah, I mean, that was written by a lawyer, okay? They need to get this moron out of there quickly. And the only thing this person's doing is causing trouble, causing huge financial issues, for the landlord, and they need to go. And the fact that they've been trying to evict this person for 2.5 years and they haven't been able to get him out yet, that is awful, okay? That's just telling you that the entire system up there in New York is broken. It is broken, and I don't know how they're going to fix it. That's why I tell people all the time, especially if you're a small investor, you're looking for somewhere to buy real estate, and maybe you live in New York, right? Well, don't buy there. Okay, you're going to get caught up in the same web of nonsense. Okay, caught up in all their laws and all their regulations, and you're going to have tenant groups that hate your guts. Even if you own a duplex, okay, you can get screwed over badly, and that's why I tell people, invest out of state or don't invest at all. Okay. There's other ways to invest your money that you can get a good return on. Maybe put your money in the stock market. Just don't buy real estate up in New York, or you're going to be mistreated. You're going to be sitting there dealing with problems like this one right here with these awful tenants.